Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Matthew Boyle from LanguageCardGames.com, where we believe if you can play cards, you can learn languages. And today we're going to take an in-depth look at the Othertongue game. I decided to make this video Othertongue 101 because Language Guardians 101 got a lot of positive feedback. People found it very helpful, I think, to have as much information about the game as possible in one video. So we're going to do that for Othertongue. What you're looking at right now are the 3 currently available editions of this game. Their fronts and their backs. The first edition of this game was called Spellbound, and it's fantasy themed. The second edition of this game is called Word Factory Inc., and it's sci-fi themed. And the third edition of this game is called Rise of the Steampunks, and it's steampunk themed. What we're going to do in today's video is a little bit different from the last one. I'm going to start off with a quickfire round of this game without explaining it too much, just so you can see the action. And if you feel a little bit bewildered about what's going on, that is okay, relax, stay with us. And then I'm going to slow it down and explain each card, and then play that same game again more slowly. And I think that should be a really fast way to get you to understand how this works. Actually, in the game I'm going to show you, you're going to see just about every important mechanic or rule that can happen in this game. So if you understand the mini game I'm about to show you, you'll understand a lot. Basically the essentials of what you need to know. Before we get started, I want to warmly welcome you to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And always remember, you can leave any comments you like down below. I'd be happy to answer your questions and chat with you there. Pour yourself a cup of tea too. I already have. I'm way ahead of you. I've got some delicious oolong tea here. And I'm going to show you a battle between Othertongue 3 and Othertongue 1. And yes, the decks are really small because I want to show you a complete game fairly quickly. If you want your games to be longer, you just add more cards to the decks that you're using. Alright, are you ready? I'm just going to quickly play a game without explaining what's happening, without speaking words in foreign languages. I'm just going to do the actions, almost like a high-speed chess game. So here we go. Player number 1 plays the wheel-lock pistol. Player number 2 plays the knight. The knight attacks and reduces this pistol card's value by 1 point. Player number 1 plays the tattooer and uses the wheel-lock pistol to discard the knight. The wheel-lock pistol is deactivated for the time being. Player number 2 plays Decompose and sort of regenerates the knight. Player number 1 plays the Serviceman and turns up the wheel-lock pistol using the Serviceman. Player number 2 plays the knight and attacks the tattooer, reducing their points by 1. Player number 1. Player number 1 uses the tattooer to change the name of the knight to something else. It doesn't matter what. We could change his name to Banana. You'll see why later. And then using the wheel-lock pistol destroys the knight. Tattooer turns down because they changed the name. Wheel-lock pistol turns down because it fired. And then, if I didn't already, no, I don't think I can't remember if I used the Serviceman or not, but it doesn't matter. Okay, player 2 plays the archer and destroys the Serviceman using the archer. Now, no player has any cards to draw, so the game is over. and whoever has the most points wins. This person has 2 cards on the field, so they have 2 points. This player has 2 cards on the field, but they were both reduced by 1 point. So these are in total worth 0 points. So this player has won 2 points to 0 points. And that, in a nutshell, is one really high-speed version of this game. What do you think about it? Do you think you could handle this? Do you think you could activate these different cards by speaking words in foreign languages? Let's see if you can. Let's go through these cards one by one. And you can think about if you know words in these categories that you could say if you were battling this game. So to use the serviceman, you have to give an example of an occupation in your Othertongue. By the way, Othertongue just means your target language. I don't know if I said that before. Maybe I should have said that earlier. That's what Othertongue means for this game. Your target language. So what is your target language? Spanish, Chinese, Arabic, English? I don't know. Can you give an example of a job? If you can use the serviceman to turn any card up or down. In this game, if cards are down, they're deactivated. You can't use them. If they're up, you can use them. So with this card, you can turn cards up or down. Tattooer. This one doesn't really have a requirement. You can just use it. You can use it to change the name of any card. And that can be really useful sometimes, because some cards, their rule has to do with the names of other cards. So if you can change the names of other cards to things that you know how to say in foreign languages, and your opponents don't know how to say in foreign languages, then it's going to give you more advantage on that field. Wheellock pistol, look at this. If you can translate a noun, verb, or adjective on another card into another language, you can discard that card and then turn down the wheellock pistol. So this is a great card because it gives you a lot of freedom. You can look at any card on the table, find a noun, verb, or adjective on that card, and then translate it into any language you want in order to destroy that card. So it doesn't have to be your target language, it doesn't have to be your Othertongue. Now the Knight, one of my favorite cards. It's a little complicated, but listen carefully. I think you can understand it. If you can speak a word in your Othertongue that the other player, if you can speak a word in another player's Othertongue that player cannot translate into your Othertongue, but you can, then you can subtract a point from them. So an example would be, let's say I'm learning Chinese and the other player is learning Spanish. If I can say a word in Spanish that I also know in Chinese, but they do not know in Chinese, then I can attack with the Knight. Love this card, it's so much fun. Because basically you're showing that you know words in their target language that they don't know. Okay, decompose. This one helps you to get discarded cards back. And the way you do that is to translate the name of the card you want back into another language. And the last card, the Archer, lets you translate a verb on another card. If you can translate a verb on another card into one language, you can turn that card down. If you can translate that verb into 2 other languages, you can totally get rid of that card. So what do you think? Do you think you would be able to speak words according to these requirements in your target language, your Othertongue? Now let's play the game again more slowly. And if you want to skip this game and go to the next section of this video, you can. I'm going to put some timestamps in here so you can jump around where you want to. But right now, we're going to play this game again more slowly now that you know how the cards work. Let me make sure they're in the same order as before. Here's the Othertongue 3 cards, and here's the Othertongue 1 cards. So, player number 1 puts out the wheel-lock pistol. They can't use it because there are no other cards to target using the rule on this card, so their turn's over. Player number 2 plays the knight. Now, for him to use this, he has to say a word in my Othertongue that I don't know in his Othertongue, but he does, if that makes sense. So let's say he can do that. Then he can attack, reducing the point on this pistol. Back to this player's turn. This player puts down Tattooer. Because the Tattooer is a character, the Tattooer can use the wheel-lock pistol to destroy the knight. To do that, according to wheel-lock pistol, I have to look at this card for a noun, verb, or adjective that I can translate into another language. So I might look at the word speak. That's a verb that I know how to say in another language. I say it, and then using the wheel-lock pistol, I can discard this card. Now the knight, he has an ability to perhaps protect himself. If he can roll a dice that's 5 or higher, he would remain here. But let's say, just for example, that he rolled and the roll was unsuccessful. Okay, he's discarded. Player number 2 plays Decompose. And then, because he knows how to translate this word into several languages, he can easily use Decompose. Maybe he translates the word knight into Japanese or Korean. That lets him get this card back. Now normally it would be shuffled into the deck, but we're just going to put it back on top because I need to keep things in order so I can explain this to you without something random happening. Player number 1. Oh, I'm sorry, this wheel-lock pistol should be turned down too because it destroyed the knight. That's part of the pistol rules card. Okay, player number 1 plays the Serviceman. Serviceman, if you remember, we have to say a word, we have to say an occupation in our target language, our Othertongue. So let's say I can do that successfully and I can say firefighter or policeman or teacher in my Othertongue. Then I can use Serviceman to turn up or down any card, and I want to turn up the pistol so that I can use it again when I need to. Alright. Now I'm going to save it because I think that knight's going to come back and I want to have my pistol ready to destroy him. Here we go. Knight's coming back and he reduces the points value by doing his same rule again. He attacks the Tattooer. Okay, player number 1. Player number 1 first is going to use the Tattooer to change the name of this card because player number 1 doesn't want this card to happen again, bringing the knight back. Remember this card, it will allow you to get cards back from the discard pile if you can translate their name into another foreign language. If I change the name of that card to something he doesn't know, then he'll be done for. He won't be able to get that card back with this anymore. So I could change it to something crazy like, I don't know, vehicle or dirt. I'm just thinking of whatever can come to mind. Or you know, it could be something crazy like cumulonimbus, like the name of a type of cloud. You know, you could really mess with them here. So we change the name of that card, and then I'm going to attack with the wheel-lock pistol again and saying a noun, verb, or adjective, translating a noun, verb, or adjective on that card. I would get rid of it. Now you can't repeat words in this game, so you can't keep translating the same word. You have to choose a different word or translate into a different language than before. You can't keep saying the same words every time. So we use that, get rid of him again. He rolls to protect himself, but it's not successful. Now we go back to player number 2. They play the Archer. and they translate, the archer translates a verb on this card. Let's look for a verb here. Give. This player translates give into 2 languages in order to destroy the servicemen. There's no more cards left for anybody to draw, so the game is over. These cards are worth 2 points in total. These cards are worth 0 points in total, so this player has won 2-0. Excellent. What a great game. I hope you're seeing how this works now, and I hope you're enjoying it. If you are, don't forget to give this video a like. Gonna have another little sip of my tea here. My throat gets dry when I'm talking this long, this much. So, let's check off where we are. We've done a quickfire round, and we've talked about how to play. Maybe I should talk just a little bit more about how to play. So when you get your deck, you're going to want to look through it and pick out the cards that you can use and build a deck. And then using this deck, you can battle against the other players. So you'll decide with the other player how many cards to draw in a starting hand. How many cards you put into your starting hand, it really depends on how big your deck is. The bigger your deck is, the larger a starting hand you can have. So I've got a deck, they've got a deck. Maybe I would draw 3 cards for my starting hand, or 4 or 5 or whatever. And then on my turn, I can draw 1 card. I can play 1 card. That's all. I can't play as many cards as I want. Then I can use the rules on any of the cards that I have down. And I can do that in any order I like. And when I've finished using any of the rules on any of the cards that I have down, my turn is over, we go to the other person. And the game continues that way until all the cards from all the players' decks are gone, and there's no more cards that anybody can draw. That's kind of like a timer on the game. So at that point the game will be over, and whoever has more points wins. And every card that you put down is automatically worth points, but it could gain points or lose points during the game. Hope that makes sense to you. I don't think I've ever explained this game so concisely. Now let's look at the card layout. Let's look at this knight card again. So of course you have the photo on the top. Next you have the name of the card. And then you have a colored band with the word inside. This color represents the card's element. There's different elements in this game, such as fire, earth, air, water, and metal. There's also some cards that are a combination of 2 elements. Right now, that's currently what we have. So some cards are a blend. And why that matters is because sometimes the rules on the cards let you attack or do something special to cards that belong to a certain element. So you have to look at the color bands. Red is fire. Let's see if I have all the cards here. I don't know if I have every color. Blue is water. Tattooer is actually a blend of blue and gray. That might be a little hard to see on camera, but she's an amalgam of metal and water. There's a metal card, is gray. Green is the earth. Air is white. And then as for the words inside that color band, same thing. There's characters, there's happenings, there's objects, there's animals, and so on. And the reason that's important is the same reason as the elemental color. The rules will let you attack certain categories of cards, like maybe a character can use an object to destroy a happening. So sometimes you have to look at the category of cards. After that, there's going to be the rule text, and on the bottom is my name, the name of the person who took the photo, the name of the series. So this card belongs to the Spellbound series, and its number in that series. So this is card number 36 out of 48 cards. So that is the layout of the card. What does a deck look like? I have the second series, Word Factory Inc. here to show you. I haven't really showed off that game too much, and I wanted to show it to you today. It's a beautiful set. When you get a deck of cards, you're going to get a cover art card, a story, and then you go into the actual playing cards. So check it out. We've got the cleaner, a character, happening, character, happening, character, object, location, location. So you're going to roll through here and you're going to have a lot of different types of playing cards. And then we get to the back and we have some rules cards. So why does the layout of the deck really matter? Well, when you crack into this deck, you're going to want to look through here to pick out the cards that you can use first, because chances are there's going to be a lot of cards that have requirements that you don't know how to activate or satisfy in your Othertongue, your target language. So I recommend you go through these cards and pick out what you could use first and put the rest aside. Don't get overwhelmed thinking, oh, I don't know words on half these cards. This game is meant to stretch you. It's meant to be an educational game. Let me show you what I would do if I just opened this game. I would look in here and say, oh, okay, this card, I have to give an example of a word that has undergone pejoration. So maybe you don't know. That's okay. This is a linguistics category. Okay, this one is kinship terms. I know some kinship terms. This one is science fiction movies, television shows. I know some of those. Recyclable materials. I know some of those. Power sources. I know some of those, like gas, electricity, water, air. Some names of endangered languages. I know some of those. Computer parts. Excellent. I know a lot of those. So you go through and you pick out the cards that you feel like you can use. Now after you've done that, there's going to be another step. You're going to have to understand the rules on these cards and kind of how they work together. Because you now have kind of a random assortment of cards, and the rules or the strategy of these cards might not work very well together. That's where the deck building part comes into play, and that's why I don't recommend this game to everybody, unless you're very familiar with more complex card games. But I could try to battle with these cards against another person and their deck and see what happens, and then I'm going to know how to make some adjustments. I can say like, okay, these cards weren't really helping me out too much. I'm going to get rid of those and pick two other cards that I think I can use, swap those in, and see how it works. You might want to build a deck that works really well to destroy other people's cards. You might want to build a deck that is very good at accumulating points. You might want to build a deck that lets you get cards back from your discard pile very easily, or search through your deck easily for what you want. There's a lot of different ways to come at this to achieve victory. But basically, in short, what I would recommend is you look through the deck and pick out the cards that you think are really deadly, and also that you could activate to build your deck. Now, you might be thinking, wow, I'm not sure if I could handle the requirements on some of those cards. Well, you might be right, but you might be wrong too. This card game, it was designed with people who really like sci-fi and technology in mind. That's why it has a lot of crazy requirements related to computers and coding and hacking and sci-fi movies and stuff like that. But it also has some cards with simpler requirements, And it also has some cards with no particular requirements at all, cards you can just use. So you might be able to handle this game. But if not, what else could I recommend to you? Well, the Rise of the Steampunk's Othertongue game is probably the easiest one. And the reason why is because it has simpler requirements on the cards, and it also has more duplicate cards. So these first two editions right now don't have any duplicate cards, but this one does. So if you learn a few of the cards, then you can put those cards and all their duplicates into a deck and build up a nice sized deck to battle with. Only knowing how to use like 3 or 4 cards, you could build a deck with like 15 or 20, and then, that might be a good route for you to take. But like I said, if you take your time to learn some of the cards slowly, and yes, you might have to do some particular research for how to say words in your target language. If you take it slow and use and build up your abilities and your knowledge, this game's going to have a lot to teach you over time, and the replay value will be very high. Now, I'd like to talk with you about some variations on how to win. And let's put these cards back out like we're having the little mock game here. Let's say the game is looking something like this. This is a deck, and we're duking it out. Normally, as I mentioned before, the way that we win is to have the most points when the game is over. The game is over when nobody has any cards left in their deck to draw, and then you tally up the points. But we could play around with some different ways to win. We could say that we could set a points limit, for example. That would be my first suggestion to you. We could say the first person to reach 5 points wins, or the first person to reach 10 points wins. If you play that way, it doesn't matter how many cards are still in the deck, or whether you've used all the cards in the deck. The game simply ends the moment when some person at the end of their turn has the required number of points. So you can do kind of like a points limit style of battle. Another way you could battle is kind of in a knockout style. We could say the first person to have 5 cards discarded loses, and they're knocked out of the game. That could be a really fun way to play. And again, then it doesn't matter how many points people have, it doesn't matter how many cards are in their deck. They simply have to be careful not to have too many cards knocked out. This game you can play with multiple people. You can play with 2 or more people. So knockout could be a fun way. Let's talk about how to use the decks. We've already seen how you can battle 2 decks against each other. Another way you can battle is to share a common deck. So we could shuffle all the cards together and have a common deck, and we all draw our cards from that. Now yes, these cards have different backs. I don't know if you have different versions of the game with you. So this might be something you want to take into account, because you may know which cards are coming based on their backs. I thought about that, I knew about that, but I wanted the games to have different backs. You can just put these into deck protectors, those plastic sleeves that have a color on their back, and then you won't see the backs anymore. And they'll protect your cards too. But okay, let's say we have this common deck here. How will this work? Well, I would draw a card, play it to my field, and attack you. You draw a card, play it to your field, you attack me. Maybe there's a third player. They play a card, attack, and we go around. And we play like this. You could make a rule that you can only attack players to your left, so everybody attacks who's to their left. or you could do it in like a melee style. You can attack whoever you want. The only thing you have to watch out for here is when you discard cards, when cards are discarded from your field, they should go into your discard pile. So you will have a unique, individualized discard pile. Only the common deck is shared. That could be fun. It makes everything totally random because you have one deck and you totally shuffle it up, and nobody knows what they're going to get. It's really hard to come up with a strategy in that scenario because you haven't built your own deck. But it could be really fun and unpredictable. Alright, so let's take a look at where we are. We've talked about some different variations, different ways that you could win in this game, and how to use a common deck versus an individual deck. Also how to play in a circle. You can make everyone attack the person to their left, or you can let them attack anybody. Now I'd like to get into some backstories with you a little bit. One really exciting thing about Othertongue is I have already written a lot of stories for this game. You will find them on the cards, and you will also find them in the PDF rulebook that you get with this game. And I've even made a sort of a video trailer for Othertongue 3. And I love doing that kind of stuff. It really supports the game well and builds out the universe of this game. And in the future, I will definitely be doing more of that, and I'll be requesting for help from my followers to get involved and supply their ideas for characters and stories, and we may even hire story writers. And again, this is all to tie into the cards, make the cards more valuable to you, and help you to learn more languages and more vocabulary. Because the cards and the stories will feed into each other and play off each other. Words that you see on the cards will appear in the stories and vice versa. But how about the stories behind these games? Well, as I mentioned, the first edition of Othertongue is kind of fantasy themed. So in this one, there's different elemental, I don't know if I want to say tribes for this game. They're not really tribes, but there's different types of people on the planet of Earth, and they have different sort of magical capabilities. Similar, in a way, kind of based on the elements, so like it's about elements and fantasy. And they're warring with one another. And then, in the second edition, the story that happens here is that the original inhabitants of Earth, this more fantasy-themed deck, the peoples of this game get invaded by species from another galaxy who they take over worlds by messing with their languages, spreading almost like a linguistics infection. They take over by controlling words that you can know and you can say, exchanging them for other words, different words that they use. So they don't simply win or take over others by violence or by destruction. They take over by messing with the languages of a given race. And it's sort of a kind of algorithmic linguistic takeover. So these two groups are at war, and there are some cards in this game that allow you to transform these cards into metal cards. So there is like an assimilation. And then in the third deck, which is steampunk themed, the steampunks have basically two different factions. The first faction is a group that thinks we can kind of coexist with these invaders. We can learn from them, we can get through this, we can adapt their technologies for good, and we can fight them. We can perhaps fight and win against them using their technologies. And then there's another group which is more on the side of the invaders, and they have become like their invaders. So this deck is kind of split between people who are a mixture of these two on the side of good, and people who are a mixture of these two on the side of bad. I don't know if I'm explaining this well. If I'm not explaining this well at all, give this video a dislike. Sorry, it's a lot to explain in this hour. But I think people who like fantasy and like backstories will understand what I'm getting at here. And if you read the stories I've taken the time to write on the cards and in the rulebooks, you'll understand it probably much better than I'm explaining now. Every deck has a story card, and the rulebooks have stories too. Now let's talk a little bit about the purchasing options that are available. So we got through this part here. All right. So if you go to the Language Card Games website, there will be a pop-up box, and if you subscribe, you can get a coupon code that lets you receive a discount on the total price of your cart. These games right now, they don't have print and play versions, but I am planning to make those in the future. Right now, they're only available in these professionally printed decks. And you can receive a further discount if you buy more than one game. So you can look for our combo packages. You can use the game finder and search for combo packages, and then you'll see that if you buy more games, you get more savings. And we ship to any country worldwide for free. So these games will be delivered directly to your door in about 1 to 2 weeks. So I hope you'll go by and visit the site after this. Before you go, don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave any questions or comments you have down below. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know this video was a long one, but I hope it was a very informative one as well. And if you enjoyed it, then, you've taken your first step to becoming a cardlanger, which is what we call the people who love to learn languages with card games. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you back here next time at Language Card Games. Bye for now.